Welcome to the show. My guest today is comedian Greg Warren. I found him from listening to the comedy channel on SiriusXM. And then I looked up more of his clips online, and I instantly became a fan of his comedy. He has some really great bits, and he's really good at doing the voices and different characters. He's been on Comedy Central, Seth Meyers, Craig Ferguson, Amy Schumer's show, among others. But I also found his background interesting. He actually went to West Point, which is a military school, on a wrestling scholarship. And that didn't work out. And then he got a job selling Pringles. And he did that for like 10 years before he finally made the leap to stand-up comedy full-time, and the rest is history. Just a funny and all-around nice guy. We talk about all this stuff, and I hope you guys enjoy this interview with comedian Greg Warren. Are you ready to do this?
Yeah, sure, man.
Okay, so how are you? First of all, how are you handling the quarantine? I heard that you read a Gordon Lightfoot biography and you wrote some jokes.
I did, man. Yeah, I don't know where you heard that, but yeah, I did. I did read a Gordon Lightfoot biography, and I read Bob Probert, who's a hockey player from played for the Red Wings and the Blackhawks. Those are the two biographies I've read. I've read a couple other books. I need to get back to the reading, man. I was doing real well for a while, and then I got sucked into some awful TV.
But you also started a podcast, right? You guys do a podcast where you review the New York Times crossword puzzle?
Yeah, man. It's called One Down. It's with myself and my buddy Brendan Ayer, who's another comic, really funny dude. And we every day we do the New York Times crossword puzzle, and then we do like a weekly review of it. And it's it's a lot of jokes, but it's also about crossword puzzles. Yeah,
that's interesting. My parents used to do crossword puzzles literally every day. That was like their thing. They would do it. And didn't you say it gets harder through the week? Like Monday is the easiest, and then Friday is the hardest one?
So it goes Monday. Traditionally, it's like Monday's the easiest, Saturday's the hardest, and then Sunday it's kind of like difficulty-wise, it's sort of somewhere between like maybe a Thursday and a Friday, but it's twice as long, twice as many clues as the other ones. It's all over the board lately. And Monday and Tuesday are usually pretty easy, but like I've gotten killed on a Wednesday lately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how does that work? I always wondered that with now the internet, can't you just Google a lot of the answers, or is that just, it's cheating, I guess, but do you ever do that, or are you trying to stay strict?
No, we sort of made that rule. I made that rule for myself when I started doing these things a long time ago. I'm like, I'm not going to benefit at all from this, or it's like, yeah, you could easily just fill it in by Googling. So the rule for me and Brendan is that we do them on the app, on the Apple app, and it's you can't Google anything, you can't ask anybody anything, and you can't there's like a little button where you can check words or check puzzle. We can't do any of that, guys. We're purists, man. We're purists.
But even at the end, you do it then, because then like at some point you go,
either so. If you finish, if you get it right, perfect.
Yeah.
It'll like give you a little da 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 da. Like you'll hear a little noise. So it'll let you know if you don't get that, you just keep trying to get it. And if at some point I'm like, I can't get it after like 2.5 hours, I can't get it, and I'll just hit reveal, and then we don't count that as being complete. Yeah. I'm like Brendan's way better at it than I am.
Okay.
But I had a pretty good week last week, man. I went 6 for 7.
Wow, that's really good. I need to start getting into that. Yeah. It's actually a really good thing to do for your mind. Like it doesn't like relieve anxiety, and like supposedly if you like do it a lot, like people that do crossword puzzles, they don't have as much Alzheimer's and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, I hear that. Like it's really good for your brain chemistry. But if you were to listen to the thoughts in my head while I was attempting to solve a crossword puzzle, it would sound anything but smart. It would sound like women. Oh boy, it's boy. I got it.
Yeah,
it's boy. Yeah, that's that one. That doesn't sound like brain chemistry.
No, but you're using your brain, and that's like it's a muscle.
Geology,
so,
maybe.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah. So let's start back at the beginning, though. So you're from St. Louis, Missouri. This is interesting background. Your father was a high school wrestling coach, and then your mother made you play the clarinet. but then you ended up doing the wrestling too. So you incorporated a lot of that into your comedy routines, highlighting the conflict between you were both a varsity wrestler and a band geek.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that was an early bit that I did called Flute Man that kind of helped me out, man. It gave me I think that bit alone got me into like the Montreal Comedy Festival, and then the bit got popular on this radio show, the Bob and Tom
Bob
show.
and Tom, right? Yeah. But
yeah, it really kind of helped me out, man.
But it was true, right? I mean, those are you really were a wrestler, and you really were in the band too.
Yeah. I was on the wrestling team. My dad was my coach, and I played clarinet in the band. Let's see, I played all the way, from I was like fourth grade all the way up through my junior year of high school, and then my senior year, I quit because I wanted to write on the school paper, and that was offered sixth period, and I was and then band was offered sixth period, so you couldn't do both, and I was like, I think I'm hanging up the reeds, as it were.
Do you ever pick it up now, or are you totally?
No. I did for a while, man. I was like, I would play it on the Bob and Tom show every now and then. Did a couple sketches with it, but no, I haven't played it in a while.
So then, so you graduated from high school, and then you took the typical stand-up comedy route. You went to West Point on a wrestling scholarship. Yeah. So
effectively, it's not really a wrestling scholarship, because it's like everybody that goes to West Point is on a scholarship. I mean, like,
okay.
You're actually paid. I mean, you're paid like a private in the Army, or a little less, I think. But so basically, the government pays for all of your school, and you get a little salary, which most goes to books and expenses or whatever. But yeah, we would get a little bit extra cash.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, West Point, it's like military school, right? Basically.
Yeah.
College.
It is the United States Military Academy. So there's one for the Army, and that's what West Point is. Then there's the Naval Academy, and then the Air Force Coast Guard.
And so you had to go through like a basic training, and you said that you would do a lot of dumb stuff, and you screwed up a lot as a freshman. Do you have some stories of things that you did that stand out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I was like always getting yelled at. Everybody gets yelled at. You figure that out. But like, I think I was especially getting yelled at. Like they would. I remember one time, like you have this drill where you take apart your rifle and you put it back together effectively. And like we were doing it as a squad or whatever, and I lost a part of the rifle.
Shit.
Yeah, I lost the firing pin, which turns out, Chuck, is a pretty important piece to it. And I was like,
crap.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, man, maybe they won't notice it's gone.
Yeah, because then do you have to shoot it, or?
No, I during that drill, I don't think we shot it. But then, I lost it, and it became. And I could tell how big of a deal it was that I lost it, because like the guy that was in charge of me, like our squad leader, he was mad, but you could also tell he was a little scared that like he was going to get in a lot of trouble because one of his idiot. Like you see that like anger and fear within him, and it's like it kind of like, oh, I screwed up real bad here. I remember like digging and digging and digging, and like I found it in the grass. I found it, and this guy, I still remember, I think it was Cadet Rodriguez. He was like, he was like an upper class. He's like, good job, Mr. Warren, you found it. And this guy Costigan, who was like a senior, and he was like a higher ranking guy. He was like. He goes, no, it wasn't a good job, Warren. You're an idiot for losing it in the first place.
Oh, God. But you found it. That's good. So is that why you because then you ended up going to University of Missouri, where you did journalism and did wrestling there. Is that part of why you transferred to University of Missouri? Because it was like these guys yelling at you and stuff, or it just wasn't a good fit, or what was the reasoning there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was specifically because of the firing pin, but it was
just because you got yelled at a lot, though, or.
Yeah, I think it was kind of like it was a lot of things. I'm a stand-up comic, so obviously I don't like the most structured life in the world.
Right.
I don't like that much authority, And I think I felt like I was a pretty straight-laced guy in high school. You know, I was pretty straight-laced. I had a great high school experience. I had great parents and all that. But I think I was kind of wanting to have a little fun when I got to college. And, you know, and West Point is not. It's, you know, I mean, it's just, you know, we left like twice during the first year. And I was the whole time I remember talking to my dad and, you know, thinking about quitting. And, you know, we kind of said, hey, once you stick out the first year, you know, no matter what.
Okay.
And so then I remember like going back and forth. And then it got to the end of the first year. And the first year is the hard part as a plebe. Like the first year is the hard part. And after that, it gets a little bit easier. And it was like the last day of school. And I still wasn't sure what I was going to do.
Didn't you think of moving to LA to pursue a dream of stand-up comedy at that point? Even though you had never tried stand-up at that point, you thought of moving there?
A little bit after that.
Okay.
Yeah, it was in the back of my head, but I was, so I was doing, we were at like some, we were done with the school year and we went to this giant assembly. It was everybody that was in the, you know, the freshman class, all the plebes. And they basically were talking about, hey, you're about to go on leave, you know, for like 3 or 4 weeks, you're going to go on leave. And then you're going to come back and you're going to go to this training. And they were talking, and the training was like driving tanks and stuff like that. I think it's called Camp Buckner. So we go to this big assembly and they're like, and when you get back to your barracks, we're going to have an inspection, an equipment inspection, to make sure you have everything ready for, you know, you have all your stuff ready for the summer when you come back. And I remember in my head, I was like, it's so long ago, but I remember thinking like, I lost a lot of that stuff that I'm supposed to have. I lost it. Like, and they were going to have this inspection. We're going to lay it out and they're just going to start yelling at me again. I thought all the yelling was over and we were marching back. And I still remember we were marching back from the assembly to our barracks. And I remember thinking, yep, I'm leaving. And it was not easy, man, because I made it through the harder part. And it was finally, you know, you're a freshman and you have these guys in your company that are upperclassmen. You're not really allowed to speak to them other than to get yelled at for like the whole year.
Yeah.
And then that last night they recognize you and they're like, okay, this guy's, now you're one of us. And I remember like, you know, I was going to miss out on all that stuff. It was kind of a cool thing. Like I made it through the hard part, but even then I was like, I'm leaving. And I talked to like, it was hard because you had to go through like 5 levels to quit. You know, I talked to my squad leader and he'd be like, yeah, okay. You know, and then he moved me up to the platoon leader and I'd be like, yeah, I hear what you're saying, man. And they try to talk you out of it and I'd listen to him and I'd be like, I still want to quit. And then, it got up 5 levels and I was finally like, you know, I finally convinced the guy, like, I'm leaving, man, I'm quitting, you know? And, it was hard, man. Honestly, at the time, I remember.
Was it hard telling your dad? Like, I'm assuming, like, was your dad the one that kind of pushed you to do that? Because that seems like not, I mean, I didn't know you back then, but just being a stand-up comedian, like you said, that doesn't seem like a very good fit for a stand-up comedian to go to, like, a military school.
Well, I mean, I think my dad pushed it, but not, I think in the end, it was definitely my decision. He pushed it a little bit, but he wasn't overbearing about it. And, you know, I wouldn't put it on him because I was not like just, you know, I was a good student and I was a real good wrestler. And I was a pretty, you know, the stand-up comic part was there, but I I'd accomplished a lot in high school. I just, and I kind of got wrapped up in the, you know, everybody was impressed when I told them, West Point wants me to go there and I got a congressional appointment. And, you know, all the adults are really impressed by it. And I went to a school with, you know, a lot of it was very diverse, but my friends were really well off and they were all going to these really like upscale private schools back east. And I was like, well, I can one up everybody. I'm going to to West Point. Yeah. And, so, I think that's part of the reason why I went. So when I quit, I remember, you know, I told my dad and he was, you know, I don't think he was happy about it, but he was understanding. My mom was thrilled that I was quitting. And then I I felt like I was letting down my country in some ways, you know, like I was a pretty serious kid, you know, but I wound up leaving, and it was, I think it was the right thing to do. Yeah, probably saved a lot of lives.
That's that's a lot to have on your shoulders when you. I never thought of it like that. Like, yeah, like you're letting your country down, like you're supposed. Because if you go through West Point, then at some point you have to actually go into the Army for so many years, or do they count the West
5.
Point? Oh, 5.
At the time it was 5. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, 5 years. Yeah.
That's a long
time. And that's the other thing. I was like, man, so this is 4 years in the military, in military school, and then 5 years after, and I was like, that's 9 years of my young life, and I don't really like the military. And I kind of feel like if you do something for 9 years, you're probably going to wind up doing it forever. So which that may not have been right or wrong, but 9 years when you're 18 years old seems like a lot of time.
Yeah,
wasn't really ready to do that, you know. And I have a lot of respect for the military, and you know, my classmates that stayed and everything. But yeah, it was an interesting experience, really.
Yeah. So anyway, so like I said, then you end up going to Missouri, and you're a pretty good wrestler. You finished 7th place in the 1991 Division I wrestling championships, right? That's nationally, right? Or that wasn't state, or was that?
Yeah, it was in the nation. Yeah,
the nation. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So can you explain you talked about this a little bit. I heard you in some interviews talking about like how you have to gain and lose weight quickly. They like ride the exercise bike, and then you don't drink any water. And then I heard you say, I don't know if I heard this right. I listened to it, like I had to rewind it like 3 times. Like I must be hearing this wrong. Did you really lose 9 pounds in 2 hours?
Yeah, that was the way that it's done, and the rules are different now. But back then, so basically, you know, my weight class for the most of college was 150, and I bumped up to 158. So, you know, you're wrestling 150, and typically there's 2 kinds of weigh-ins. If you have like a dual meet where it's just you against one team, you would, you'd weigh in, and then 5 hours later you would wrestle. So you have kind of recovery period in there. So let's say I was 150. A lot of times for that, you know, that last 24 hours, you're just basically dehydrated. You're, you know, not drinking water. And then the last hour before the weigh-in, you're really seriously dehydrating, which is like you're putting on plastic suits, and you're sitting in saunas and steam rooms and working out. We had like this sort of way to get it off. And then you step on the scale and you don't feel good. And then you just drink a bunch of Gatorade and water, and you can usually recover within 5 hours. The other way is if it's a tournament, and that would be like the night before. So, you know, you weigh in on a Thursday night and you wrestle Friday. So you have a lot more time to recover. And that's like the 9 pound thing. That was my junior year at the NCAA tournament. You know, you have to weigh in every night. So we weighed in Wednesday night for the Thursday beginning of the tournament. And then Thursday I kept winning, or I still was in the tournament. So Thursday night, I had to wrestle. Thursday night I had to weigh in again, and I stepped on the scale, and I was 9 over, and 2 hours later I made it. And I was, you know,
wow.
And it was just, it was insane. Now these days they sort of realized, like, I think some kid died in the 90s from doing it.
Yeah.
Part of me, and it's an unhealthy thing to do. I wish I wouldn't have done it. It's a crazy thing, but I think the kid died because that's when people were starting messing with creatine, and I think some of the dehydration with some of the supplements might have been what killed them. But wrestling stepped in and said, hey, we're going to make some new rules. And so what they said is, hey, you can't, no plastics, no saunas, no steam rooms. It's hard to kind of regulate that. And they also said, we're going to, every weigh-in is going to be an hour before. So you don't, like, you'd have to be a maniac. Yeah, you have to be a maniac to drop 9 pounds, get on the scale, and then you don't have time to rehydrate and sort of rest and you know, recuperate from all that. So they don't do as much dehydration. I think there's some stuff that still goes on. And then they measure your body fat early in the year, and you know, basically say like, okay, this is the lowest weight this guy can go based on, you know, body fat.
Well, when you lose all that weight so quickly, and then, I mean, are you still in the position to wrestle? Like, I would think that if you're if you're dehydrating yourself that much, aren't you like tired? And then it's like you have to go and all of a sudden wrestle somebody. You're not like low energy.
Well, I mean, that's what I was saying. Like back in the day, believe it or not, 5 hours, you could, for the most part, recuperate from that.
Wow.
If you did it the right way and you rehydrated the right way, you could. And especially if it was, you had a whole, you did it at 8 o'clock at night and you weren't wrestling until 11 the next morning, you got a lot of time to recuperate. You could rehydrate, then you eat a couple meals, and, so you're wrestling at like 10 pounds higher than you actually stepped on the scale at. So if you wrestled 150 back in the day, yeah, you wrestled 150 and you weighed 150 for a split second, 20 times during the year. You didn't weigh 150 normally.
Yeah. That's crazy. So even as good as a wrestler you were, you can't really go pro with wrestling, right? I mean, it's like college is kind of as far as that as like real wrestling, unless you like do WWF or something.
Yeah, I mean, these days a lot of wrestlers go into MMA.
Oh, that's true.
And then back in the day, you could go, to the Olympics and stuff like that. But I knew, I was sick of wrestling, and two, I knew I wasn't good enough for that. I could compete with some of those guys that were that good, but I couldn't beat them.
Yeah. So then you graduated college, and then you took a job as a busboy at Denny's, but that was short lived because then you got this interview with P&G, and then you actually had like a really good sales job for them, right? Where you sold Pringles and all these Duncan Hines and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, man. I got my first big job. While I was working for Denny's, that's that dark time that nobody talks about, like when because I was focused on wrestling. I wasn't. I mean, I had decent grades, but I didn't think about anything past the NCAA tournament. And then, I got to get a job, and some of my friends already had jobs lined up. I didn't, and you go interview and you don't get a job, and you're like, well, this is awful. And you're living with your parents.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm living in my parents' basement, and I took a job at Denny's, and like, this is, I guess, you're kids, so you just don't get things, and everything seems so permanent. I'm like, well, I guess this is what I'll be doing for the rest of my life. Working at Denny's.
No.
Yeah, living in my parents' basement. And so then I did that for a while. And I interviewed down in Houston, and I got a job, with Procter & Gamble. When the back then it was the food beverage division where we sold Duncan Hines, Crisco, Pringles, Sunny Delight, Fisher Nuts, Hawaiian Punch, all that stuff, Folgers coffee.
You did that for 10 years, right?
Yeah. I mean, different versions. I was down in Houston calling on a big wholesaler for most of that time, and then I got transferred up to Cincinnati, and I called on a Kroger division, a couple Kroger divisions up there, and then I got then they moved me into the the corporate headquarters for like a year as a project manager, what they call, and it was good experience. It's a really good company, and the people, they treated me great, and but it was like I don't know, I was kind of doing stand up on and off during that whole time, and I missed probably some of the thrill of wrestling, some of the sort of being the center of attention, being the sort of like the challenge of it, and the sort of the rush. And I found some of that in stand up.
Yeah.
So about 10 years into it, I wound up leaving the company, and it was at that time I was kind of like, the way stand-up comedy works is, so in most of the road clubs, outside of New York and LA, you have you have an MC. He's the first comedian, and then he's usually a local guy. He or she is a local person that does, and they're paid hardly anything, and they just go up and they do 10 minutes. It's it's the hardest spot for the least experienced person. Mm-hmm. And then you have a middle act, and those back in the day, and when I was doing it in the 90s, that would be somebody that would come in, they do like a half hour, and they would be from out of town, and they would be, they would usually be from out of town. They put them up in a hotel, but they were making, at the most like $500-600. It was, but it was like,
is that called the feature? Is that the feature?
The feature, sure. Yeah. The middle or the feature. And that's like it's like a really sort of the cake spot, and it's for sort of like up and comers, and it's fun. And, you don't have to be the first guy. And then you have a headliner who's paid more, and they're from out of town, obviously. So I was, living in Houston towards the end, and in Cincinnati, I was like the first guy at clubs all over Ohio. And you know, one weekend a month I'd be in Dayton, 1 week in Cincinnati, and 1 week in Columbus. And that was me. That was my job, and I was always the first guy. And I got good at it, but it's still being the first guy. And it's not an easy thing to go up and get the crowd, and you're only doing 10 minutes. And I was like, I want to be the second guy. That seems fun. So when I quit my day job, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to, I don't think I can do this long term. Like, I just didn't think I was good enough. I didn't think there was a way for making enough money. And I kept trying to figure out a way to do both. Like, I wanted to get transferred to New York or LA. And I was like, you know what? I just have to cut the cord. And I cut the cord with sort of, my only plan was, I'm just going to do this. I just want to be the second guy and see what that's like. And see how good I can get. And I'm guessing I'm probably going to have to go back to doing, you know, go back to a real job after a year or two. But I had enough money saved where I was like, I could live making very little money for a year easily. And so, you know, I basically lived out of my car. I put my stuff in storage, would stay at my parents every now and then. And I just traveled. And, you know, that was 2001 and it's 2020 and I still don't have a day job. So that's
So you did it. So you started the comedy back in college. You actually won a comedy contest, right? At some club in Missouri. Yeah,
that was, you know, one of the guys on the wrestling team sort of like signed me up. He worked at the.
Was that the first time you had done comedy?
Yeah, that was probably, you know, that was late 80s, I guess, you know. But I didn't do it with a whole lot of regularity during college. I was more, you know, I was busy with wrestling. And then while I was working for P&G, the first 5 years I did it sort of sporadically, and then the last 5 years I was at P&G, I was doing it quite a bit. You know, I was doing it. You know, most nights I was out doing something. So.
Oh, like during the week or on the weekends or both?
Both. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. You know. Yeah.
So that was you said in 2001 you quit your day job at P&G?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then you just started, did you say like you traveled and you didn't have per se like the comedy clubs like hooked up? You would just go into open mics and stuff and just perform?
No, you know, once we got to 2000 and once I quit my day job, I had some relationships. I had some people that would vouch for me. So when I quit my day job, you know, I had a lot of work lined up as the feature, the middle guy. So I was, you know, I was probably working at a club, you know, 50 out of 52 weeks that year. You know, I had, you know, I sort of had it mapped out. And back then, these days, they don't put up a lot of the features. They use a lot of local people. Back then, most of the features were from out of town. So I kind of had work lined up for the whole year.
And you said that's like $500 a night to do the feature?
$500 a week. Really.
Oh, a week. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So that, I mean, but you were able to make it work. So then in 2003.
Yeah, I went from making like, you know, well over $100,000 to making, you know, probably $20,000 that first year, you know?
So were you happy you were making the $100,000 or the $20,000 though?
The 20. Yeah, that first year was one of the funnest years of my life.
Wow.
It was a ball. Yeah.
And you didn't have a house. You lived out of your car, or did you get hotels sometimes at least, or?
Yeah, I had you know, it wasn't quite the romantic, you know, there's a lot of comics that do this that really struggle those years. I didn't struggle that much because I had money because I had worked for 10 years and I had some money saved up. Not a ton, but I had a good amount of money where I could fall back and if something happened, you know, whereas some people would have to just sleep in their car. I'd be like, no, I'm getting a hotel room. I have money. So
right. Nice.
It was, I didn't live as hard a life.
Like if it was snowing or something, you weren't, cause that would be hard to sleep in your car if there's like, if it's 0 degrees out.
I wouldn't leave my car anyways. Yeah.
Really?
I just wouldn't do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So 2003, was this kind of your big break when you got on Comedy Central on the premium blend? I love that show.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, probably the first break was to get into the Montreal Comedy Festival.
Oh, okay.
That was like, I think that was like 2002 or something. And that was probably the first break. And then, I got to, Premium Blend was the first TV thing I did. Yeah.
So is that, and then at that point now you're headlining, right? Now you can travel and use that as
I don't think, I don't think so. I think I probably started headlining more around 2004. I mean, I think the thing that like I got better, and I had I had Montreal, I had Premium Blend, and somewhere in there I got on BET, like on it was like a contest show, and then I think I did a Craig Ferguson set somewhere around in there. All that stuff happened sort of in those right around between, I don't know, it happened early, and but the thing that broke me was like the thing that made me a full-time headliner was Bob and Tom. Like when I did Flute Man on Bob and Tom, they played it a lot, like almost every week for like a year. People started to know who I was a little bit. And then Bob and Tom started doing some tours. They did like these big theater tours, and they put me on that. And that's when I was like, okay, usually with comics, you get the headline, you may be good enough to headline, like you have the material, but the club won't headline until like there has to be some sort of a nudge, a push, a reason. And with me, it was it was Bob and Tom is kind of what put me over.
Okay. Yeah. Is that a national show, or is that just local mostly?
No, it's a syndicated show.
It's syndicated. Okay.
It's in a lot of markets. Okay. I mean, at its height, I think it was in like probably 180 markets or 200 markets, and it's still in quite a few. So.
Wow. But yeah, like you said, you did Craig Ferguson. You've done that like 4 times, and you did Seth Meyers and stuff. So what is it? Do you like doing the late night shows? You talked about how you had to kind of change your sets to do that, right? Like you have to change it to a late night kind of set. It's different than the club, right?
Yeah. My I don't think my act is like a natural fit for those shows, but it's gotten better. I sort of like retrofit my act into a little bit shorter jokes, and but yeah, there's nothing funner. It's really neat.
Really,
it's a really cool thing. Yeah.
What about you did Inside Amy Schumer in 2013? What's that like? I didn't see that episode that you were in. Did you have a big role, or was it just like
no? It was a small bit part. Yeah, I just ran into Amy. I've known Amy for a long time, and I just ran into her like one night when I was living in New York, and she was like, "Hey, we need this guy to play a newscaster tomorrow," and it was. Honestly, I look back on it like I didn't think it was terribly good acting because I was like, yeah.
Yeah, you've done a little acting. You've done a couple movies and stuff. Do you like the acting, or is that just it's not really your thing?
I enjoy it. I don't think. I think there's some parts that I can do well. I think sometimes I feel like I knew how much work it took to be a good comic, and part of that helps with being a good actor, but I didn't do I went to acting class in several different iterations, but I don't think I ever really fully committed to being a great actor like I have fully committed to being a comedian. So
yeah.
I think there's probably, in some cases, in a lot of cases, there's probably more deserving people to play roles. And I don't, I've lived in New York, I've lived in LA, and I don't really think I want to live in either city. Again,
yeah,
so so when you do that,
you have to be there.
You're gonna really limit a lot of your acting roles and opportunities, and I'm fine with that. And now that said, like I've produced a couple of my own little things, and then I've been in a few things here and there. Some opportunities come up, and sometimes I think I'm a match for it. So,
yeah. What about the color commentary that you do for college wrestling? Do you enjoy? I feel like that would be a natural fit. Your degree was in journalism. You wrestled in college, and you do stand up. So that's got to be a good fit for you.
Yeah, I mean, I did. That was like a one-time thing.
Really?
It was a while ago.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was really fun. But there's like I said, now there's like people that are really, really good at that. That yeah, that was pretty fun, man. It was a good time.
Well, that's cool. And then you have an exclusive comedy routine on the SiriusXM's USA Clean Comedy channel, right?
I'm not sure. I get played a lot on Sirius. Sirius has really, really been good for me. Sirius Radio it's such a great thing for comedians. I think I think people really enjoy listening to comedy on Sirius, and I think it's kind of cool because I think it's really, I don't know, it's really fun. And in fact, it's kind of as a comedian, a lot of times I just don't want to watch comedy because I see so much of it over the last.
Yes.
You're just watching it all the time, but I don't really seek out watching it on TV, and I probably have lost a little bit of an appreciation for it. I used to love it so much, and then you do it, and you get a little bit immune to it, and I think I was in a rental car one time several years ago, and it just sort of it had Sirius. It was before I have Sirius now. It's before I had it, and I was like, I'm gonna flip on the comedy station just to see. And then like 2 hours later, I'm like, wow, I've been listening to comedy for 2 hours and really enjoying it. So so Sirius has been really, really good to me. They play a lot of my stuff. I think primarily on Laugh USA, which is it's like a clean channel for lack of a better word. And then Jeff and Larry's Comedy Roundup, they play a lot of my stuff.
Yeah, how does that work? Because I talked to other comedians, and like one of them said that her being played on Sirius pays her rent. So because they don't pay musicians, right? So how does the comedy thing? Why do they pay comedians? Do you guys have some sort of different deal than musicians have, or how does that work?
I'm pretty sure musicians get paid.
Oh, they do for the Sirius ones?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they do. I don't. Maybe I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure somebody's making money when they play something.
Okay. But it's like it's really good for comedians, right? Because that's like Liz Mealy told me that it pays her rent in New York, so that's got to be like a pretty good chunk of change there.
Oh yeah, man, it's extremely lucrative. I mean, it's like double lucrative because it's like, I get real cash money. And but I also like a lot of people hear you and become fans.
That's how I found you.
Oh, really? Oh, that's cool, man.
Yeah, I listened. I was like, oh, this is, and that's how I find a lot of comedians and they'll just play little bits and they'll play like a lot of your best stuff. And so then, it's like you said, it's hard for me sometimes to sit down and watch an hour special, but you can just listen to quick little bits of people, and it leaves you wanting more. And then I go and of course I YouTube you, and then I look at all your other stuff, and so that's how I think people find a lot of comedians.
Oh, that's great to hear. Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how grateful I am. And it just stuff comes like first full circle. The guy that sort of runs Sirius's comedy channels is a guy named Jack Vaughn, who's just a good dude. And Jack, I first met Jack. He started really the first comedy record label. He started Comedy Central's record label back in the day. The first artist that he signed was Mitch Hedberg. And
I love him. My favorite.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite comics. And Jack started the label with that album. And so, and then, Jack produced my first big comedy album when he was at Comedy Central Records. And that was, going way back. And then, cut to now, Jack's sort of been in a few different jobs, and now he's the guy in charge of comedy at Sirius. And, he's just doing some real cool things over there.
Yeah, and by the way, if people are listening now, you can get Sirius free until the end of the month, I think. Right?
Yeah, I know they had a deal. They had a deal like through May
31st or something. Yeah.
Oh, was it May 31st? I think maybe
30th. How many days are in May? I think there might only be 30 days. Is there 30 days and 31? I can't remember, but I know it goes until the end of the month. So people should do that.
It's really those guys have they've played it. I'm really grateful. Jack gave me some really good advice. Call it maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Like I've never been really like that profane of a comic. I've never been like dirty or whatever.
I was going to ask you about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, but I was never like completely clean. Sort of most of my career, I was somewhere in the middle. I was like one of the cleaner comics, but you would hear me swear. It's just I like a lot of really dirty comedy. It's just a lot of guys, but it's just my style. Sure. I found was like fairly clean, but some profanity. And then it started getting a little cleaner and a little cleaner just as I got older. Just how I started probably thinking more and more about I want to put this on TV, and it needs to be clean to be on a lot of the TV stuff.
Yeah.
And then about 4 or 5 years ago, Jack, I was getting ready to do a new album, and the album's called Fish Sandwich, which is my latest album. And Jack was like, I called him and I was like, "Hey man, I'm thinking about doing this thing. I'm wondering where, I just sort of chat." And he was at Sirius at that time. Maybe it was 4 years ago. And Jack said, "Well, he said you need to go all the way clean." I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You're so close. Like you're so close to being, all the way clean. It doesn't make sense for you to just not where the album's not clean because of 5 words." And so I did that, and that got a lot of play on Laugh USA, and it effectively kind of shifted my work a little bit. Now I pretty much everything I do is clean. You know, if you see a live performance, I don't think you'll ever be offended. You might hear a swear word here and there. I just, you know, I mean, on a live performance. But when I put something out, it's usually, you know, like 100%, like a kid could listen to it, for the most part.
No, yeah, your stuff's, yeah, and you're also on that dry bar comedy, which I interviewed Andrew Rivers, and he was on the dry bar comedy thing too, and he gets a lot of views off of that. You got a lot of views off of that one too. Is that lucrative? Does that pay well, or is that just more for exposure?
I think, I mean, the best thing about that is exposure, and the reason why I did the dry bar is like, you know, I had plenty of stuff that was up on YouTube, but I didn't put it there, and I don't know, you know, some of it was stuff that I cared for, some of it was stuff that I did not care for. And some of it was stuff that was just somebody shooting something in the, you know, with an iPhone, and with dry bars so social media and internet savvy that, like, now if you Google Greg Warren, probably the first 10 things you see are well produced clips on dry bar with good sound and good lighting, and you know, and they, because they know how to get hits on that stuff. So now I feel like it's worth it totally. Just for the fact if you Google Greg Warren, that's what you're going to get. And then they know how to get a lot of views on their stuff. So I've made some, you know, some new fans. Yeah, they've been good.
Do you ever get people that saw you on dry bar, and so they think that you're like the super clean, and then they come out to see you, and then you maybe drop an occasional swear word or something, and then they get offended? Or like you said, is you mostly, you don't swear anyway?
You know, I don't think I've had that.
Okay, that's good.
Because since I did the dry bar thing, like it's really rare you're going to hear me say something offensive, you know. It's just I don't. Back in the day, like I think I did Last Comic Standing one time, and at that point I was like, it was like, and when I was on that, like, You're Clean on, you know, NBC, right. And I think somebody came to a show one time and they're like, man, I didn't like how you swore, and I was like, yeah, I think she's kind of right. And then I was like, I think she's right. I need to be a little clean, you know.
It's almost like you gotta go all in one way or the other. Like either if you're gonna go dirty, you gotta go super dirty, or if you're gonna be clean, you gotta be like really pretty clean then, right?
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, that's where I am. And so it would be I'd be very surprised if somebody came away from a show offended, you know. Now there are some people that go to comedy shows with the intention of, I'm going to find something to be offended about. And, you know, like, I don't think I can do anything about that. But,
yeah. Well, and that happens on social media and stuff too. Do you ever have that?
Oh, yeah. It's that same culture. It's like, well, I'm going to find something to be mad about. Well, you probably can if you want to. You know?
Do you have that? Do you have trolls on, like, I know you test a lot of your material out on Twitter if it's something short. And I think that's a good way too, because then you have a timestamp. So if somebody steals it, then you could say, this is my tweet. But do you have trolls or people attack you on Twitter or anything like that?
No, not really. I mean, not on Twitter. Like, you know, I think YouTube, you know, for all the views that I've gotten on videos and stuff, like there's always going to be somebody that says something negative. Like and I, you know, of course I try not to read all the comments, but sometimes I catch myself reading and I'm like, oh, come on, man. You know, like, so yeah, YouTube is the one place where if you look at those comments, you're going to see something about yourself that you're not happy. I mean, even if it's like 50 great things and one bad thing, the one thing bad thing, you're like, but there's always going to be somebody that has a problem with what you're doing. Or there's, you know, I'm kind of naive when it comes to the whole trolls. I read this book the other day about the dark web or something, and it sort of really I didn't even understand the whole culture of trolls. But yeah, there's some people that they're just going to go to try to get you going. And
so what do you mean the culture of trolls? Like, aren't they all just losers, or is there more to it than that? I don't.
Yeah, but they're just trying to get a reaction out of you. But there's this whole world of people that like that. I didn't realize it was that big of a deal. I thought it was just like, somebody. They are just trying. There's a whole world of people that are just.
Because they want the attention. Like if they tweet something, because my Twitter is like nobody. I mean, I only have like 100 followers, but if I mean, it doesn't matter what I tweet, nobody responds. But then you see the things that are it's an algorithm. So like the more interaction. So if you tweet something, you know, that's really racist or like offensive, then people are going to respond, and then that tweet jumps to the top of the charts or whatever. So that must be like what you're talking about with the trolls. Like they're trying to get,
they're trying to get some reaction out of me, and they don't. I mean, I probably have fired off every now and then. Like I think when I first I did a half-hour special on Comedy Central years ago, and that was a pretty big deal for me. And yeah, I think it was pretty good. You know, I mean, I look back now and I'm like, oh, I'm a much better comic. But I remember, you know, when I got all kinds of nice things, but I remember like the day it aired, somebody sent me an email that said, "You're the worst comedian I've ever seen." Expletive.
Oh my God.
Blah, blah, blah. Like,
how did they get your email address?
It's easy. I mean, it's on my website. They just email you through your website. So it's easy to find me.
So they took the time to go to your website, look up your email address, write an email. I mean, that's like a lot of work to.
The night it aired. I mean, like the biggest. You know, that was like the biggest thing in my career at that time, and I'm like, oh, and I remember, you know, I think my standard response, I don't get too many of those, but it's just, "Thank you for your continued support," is usually what I is how I respond to those.
It's so fascinating to me. Like I've interviewed a lot of comedians, and obviously I'm a fan of all the ones I interview. And so when they tell me about trolls, I'm like, how can anyone not like think that you're not like enough that it like bothered them to like write a comment? It's so fascinating.
Yeah, I don't get that. That takes some work, man. You know, and it wasn't weird. Like I've had some people send me like, "Hey, you know, I think, you know, like I remember I did some jokes about like because of the weight cutting thing in college and all that, the wrestling thing. Like I had some eating issues, like binge eating, like overeating issues later in life.
Yeah.
Where not binge and purge, just binge, you know?
Okay.
And I just would emotionally eat and all that stuff. It sounds, you know, crazy, but it's like I did, and I got some help for it and sort of figured it out. But I remember I had some pretty good material about it. It was very self-deprecating, and it was very honest, and it was, you know, I was like talking about like, you know, I would just like eat, like I'd eat Oreo ice cream all the time when I lived in LA, like Ben and Jerry's Oreo ice cream. And then I was like, at some point I was like, I think, I don't think there's enough Oreos in this ice cream. I'm going to buy an extra package of Oreos and shove down Oreos in the ice cream. And, you know, I'd be at the, you know, the convenience store buying it, and the, you know, the checkout girl would be like, "Hey, you know those already Oreos?" I know. All right, I know.
Oh, that's hilarious.
You know, so and then I went like I saw some. I was like, after a while, I was like, "This is getting a little weird." You know, I'm doing this every night.
No, because I just had a blizzard the other day, a peanut butter cup blizzard. I don't eat that stuff very often, but I was like, oh, I'm going to treat myself. And I thought the same thing. I thought, you know what? They don't have enough peanut butter cups in this blizzard. Like, I think they got cheap on me.
You can buy your own peanut butter cups.
Yeah, I'm going to have to do that next time. I think that's smart.
No, it's not. It's a bad sign, especially when you're doing it. So I remember I went and saw like a therapist or something at that time and talked, and I remember feeling like really silly about it.
Yeah, I heard you say that you don't get on you won't step on a scale now? Like you refuse to, even at the doctors are like, you need to step on the scale. You're like, no.
No, I don't get on the scale. I'm like, I mean, just because I spent my whole childhood on scales, I just won't do it. And they're like, well, you have to get on the scale. I'm like, I don't. You know, they're like, well, it's really important to do. I'm like, why? They're like, a lot of reasons. For one, like the medication that we give you, a lot of it has to do, it's based on how much weight. I'm like, okay, well, I'm somewhere between 177 and 200. How different is the medication at 177 than is at 200? So anyways, the reason I'm talking about this is like, you know, I remember doing some material about it. It was very self-deprecating and honest. And, you know, and I'm talking about eating cookies, and it was, and then some lady just sent me a horrible like email about, my friend was at your show and she has an eating disorder, and you shouldn't be talking about that. It really upset her, and she was crying.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, and I felt bad. I'm like, I feel bad for her. I feel awful for her, but she didn't understand. Like, I can't not talk about anything with any meaning. So, you know, that I kind of get, because you just struck a nerve. I don't, you know, I don't agree with it, but I very much empathize with somebody that feels the need to write an email because it touched her friend in a specific way, you know, and upset her. But like just the general, I hate you and your act. Like, why would you take the time to do that?
Yeah.
Like, what is? there's nothing specific.
That's so
So
strange.
yeah,
That's fascinating.
yeah.
But you take now I had a comedian on here one of the first interviews I did, Anthony Davis, and I never heard of this, but he was talking about how he put all his jokes on this Excel spreadsheet. And do you have the same kind of thing? And what kind of statistics do you put on yours, or what kinds of notes do you put on the Excel sheet?
I mean, you wouldn't say it's all that. It's just a way to organize material, but yeah,
Okay.
I mean, especially when I'm getting close to a CD or a special, I put the material up there, and basically it's just a column of here's the joke, and then the time. Mostly it's like how long the joke is,
Oh, okay.
and then I'll go through, and then I'll listen every night, and sometimes I'll make a note like. It's just like I need a little more here, or here's a might be a way to expand this premise, or here's maybe a place where we need to shore something up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because the other guy he had like statistics, like how many laughs each joke got, like how good it did, and like rated it, and like I mean it was like really intense. But yours sounds more.
Yeah, I don't go that. Yeah, more just like so. Now I have been like gotten to the level of like, hey. Yeah, here's where some of the stronger premises are. Here's some of the weaker premises, but it's not that scientific,
Yeah. So going back to the troll stuff though, like, do people get offended because you don't swear? Like we said, your comedy is mostly clean, but you do like voices. You do this kind of like a redneck guy. You do like a Middle Eastern guy. You do the black guy. You do like an old guy. And I love it when comedians do voices, and you're really good at it. And it's funny because you create these characters. And I think the characters are endearing. I don't think it's derogatory. I even love it when black guys do a white guy voice. I think it's funny. But
sure.
Do you ever get criticism for doing voices of different races, or has anyone accused you of being racist? Or?
Pretty rarely. Yeah, I think every now and then, if you do as many shows as I've done in my life, you're with people that are drunk, and I've had some people be like really drunk and say, I'm like, you didn't really hear what I said there. You just heard, you were looking to be offended. No. And I really do try to think about how could this be offensive? Am I on the wrong side of this? And, I'll be honest with you. Part of being a comedian is to be on the wrong side every now and then. If you're going to find the line,
right,
you need to step over the line sometime, whatever your line is.
Yeah.
And so I will tell you, there have been times when I look back, I'm like, I don't think that was cool what I did there. Like I'm not proud of that.
Oh, I got a good story for that.
Stuff.
Or you have a good story for that. Like, tell me this one. You said you were not proud of this. Is this a true story that you were at the Ha Ha Club in LA and there was a guy talking on his phone, and you asked if you could see his phone, and then did you really throw and break his phone?
Yeah.
What? But there's probably a lot of comedians that have dreamt of doing that.
I'm not ashamed of that. I mean, I'm not proud of that, but I'm not as ashamed of that as like when I said, because that guy was they were complete idiots and just awful people. But I'm not. I mean, I should have handled it better. That was a long, long time ago. But there's some stuff that I've said that I'm like, what? On stage, I'm like, that was ignorant, and I wish I wouldn't have. But I full-heartedly believe this. Like, that comics should not. It's the problem with like everybody has a phone, everybody has a camera. It's like, oh, I caught this guy saying this thing on stage. Yeah, he's a comedian. He's gonna say dumb stuff every now and then, and you're gonna lose the context of it. And I don't think that now there's anything taken too far is like, yeah, that's probably not the first time he's been incredibly racist on stage, and he has and lost his temper or that kind of thing. But I've seen some comics get just barbecued over a joke, and I'm like, you're looking to get mad, and I don't like it.
Right. No, I heard that like some millennials, they think Seinfeld is offensive, and that like boggles my mind because like I actually started rewatching that series, and I think it still stands up today. I think it's hilarious.
It's great. Yeah. I mean, those people they're going to find something to be offended about,
Yeah, because your influences, you were like influenced by Eddie Murphy, right? Isn't that one of the first comedy albums that you listened to?
Yeah, I think, yeah. It was probably the first comedy album that I listened to. I was on a bus trip up to Iowa when I was in high school. My buddy and Stacy Weiland and I were wrestling in a big tournament in high school up in Cedar Falls, Iowa, and we took the Greyhound bus, and and then he had Eddie Murphy's stand-up comic album, and it was great, man.
That's cool. And so you got to do a sketch. I saw this video online where you did a sketch where you interviewed Joe Buck. Now you're a big baseball fan. Was there actually questions that you actually wanted to ask him because in the sketch you don't really get to like do the interview because the referee keeps interrupting you guys. Were you actually able to chat with him a little bit like off air though?
No. Yeah. Oh yeah. We did. He was in a he was really, that video I think was to promote the NCAA wrestling tournament in St. Louis. We played it at the tournament, and it was just a funny thing. And he's a really funny guy, and he was.
Is he really like off air?
He was really funny, yeah. And he was insanely busy during that time, and we caught him. We just got him for like 2 hours, and so we didn't have a ton of time to go back and forth. But he was really gracious and a really nice guy, and I'd love to talk to him about all kinds of stuff. I got to tell him about a few, baseball moments that I really enjoyed him calling, and I was a big fan of his dad's too. So,
totally.
Yeah, we got to talk. He was a great guy, man. Yeah, I didn't realize I went to a private school for like 2 years in like 6th and 7th grade, and he was in the class below me, and I knew him. I remember him. I can picture him. His name, but he went by Joel back then.
Oh, weird.
And he was like, he was a little heavier as like a kid, So now that and my friend was like, "Hey, did you talk to him about when you guys went to school?" I'm like, "I didn't go to school with Joe Buck." He's like, "Yeah, he was in the class below." So I'm like, "Oh, Joel?" And then I was like, "Oh, that was him." And if I look at him, like that was that guy. Yeah. So I didn't even I forgot that we did that.
That's crazy. I didn't.
But he was a really really, really cool dude, man.
That's really neat. Well, you've done so many amazing things like with the TV shows and the comedy albums. Do you have any advice for people who want to be successful at something? Maybe not even necessarily specifically comedy, but like what kept you going through? I mean, because you were also a successful salesman for 10 years.
Mildly. I don't know. I think it was video. Yeah. Man, I don't know if I have. I don't know if I really have a place to be giving anybody a whole lot of advice on. I think overall, I mean, I can give a lot of advice on stand-up comedy, but on just life stuff, I think overall, just sort of, the thing that I've learned, and I wish I would have learned quicker, and I wish I would continue to learn, is like, failure is part of success. Like, just you have to fail.
Yes.
To be any good at anything, and you have to fail regularly, and you have to find a way to sort of make peace with failure, and not let it derail you for too long.
Right, and learn from it.
Think actually learn from it. And I think sometimes I've done a good job of that, and sometimes I have not done a good job at all.
When did you not do a good job of it?
I can remember I did Last Comic Standing a couple times. I think the most recent was like in the last time they ever did it. It was like 2015 maybe or something like that.
Yeah.
And that year I thought I could win this thing, and I didn't. I got to the semifinals and I lost. And, it wasn't a great performance. It wasn't a bad performance, but the first performance was really good. The second one was just mediocre. And there's a lot of extenuating circumstances that I'm not sure I want to talk about, but some of it was my fault, some of it wasn't, and I really let that get to me. I kind of at that time I was like, well, that was my last shot at really making it, and I just let it get to me, and I stopped writing for a long time. And I look back, I'm like, what was I doing? I should have got back on the horse 2 days later. Take 2 days, and but I let it really, really affect me, and it was stupid.
Well, is there that big of a difference between somebody who wins Last Comic Standing as opposed to someone who makes it to the finals? I mean, isn't it all? It's not. Do they get a bigger payday or something?
I think. Well, I mean, like the semifinals. You get to the finals, that's like the top 10. I think you just get way more exposure.
Way more exposure, yeah.
Yeah, and now in retrospect, it doesn't. None of it matters.
Right.
But back then, it was really important to me, and I thought I blew an opportunity, and I was pretty hard on myself, and I let it affect me for way too long. I wasn't writing. And actually a friend of mine, not a close friend, but a good, friend of mine, this guy named Ryan Stout, hadn't talked to him in a long time. He just called me out of the blue and started talking about writing. And he's like, what are you working on? I'm like, I've been nothing. He's like, yeah, come on, man. Got to get back into it. Got to start producing. And I was like, yeah, he's right. And I, and I got back into it. Why did I let this affect me so much?
Yeah, like you put all your eggs in that basket, like that was gonna
that was gonna be the thing.
Is it? And that's not even that show's not even on the air anymore. So is there something now, like a goal that you have, like a show that you really want? I mean, you've done late now. You have your own comedy albums. What else? I mean, is there something else you'd want to do, to have like a Netflix special or something? Or
well, I actually I have a special that's coming out in real soon on June 30th on Amazon, and it's called Where the Field Corn Grows, and it's all about sort of my lack of understanding of farming, and and then that album will play in sort of as a preview to the special. They're going to play it on Sirius Radio in middle of June, and then on June 30th it's going to come out on Amazon, and so yeah, I'm excited about that, and I am that we recorded that a year ago, and since then I'm halfway to another project, another special or CD or whatever it winds up being. So I'm excited I'm more excited about that material than the thing that's actually coming out on a special, because it's more recent. But the special, I think it's pretty good. I think it's definitely maybe the most definitely maybe is a really dumb phrase. Good movie with Ryan.
Definitely maybe. Hey, what do you think? That was a question I was going to ask you. I heard this phrase yesterday. You look adorbs. Have you ever heard that phrase?
Yeah, it makes me want to throw up. Yeah, I mean, it really, and the people that say that, like, you think, I'd love if, like, thousands of years from now, like, aliens come and they find tape of somebody saying adorbs. They're like, well, this culture was so busy they had to shorten the word adorable to adorbs because they just didn't have time to say adorbs.
So busy.
They were that busy. Yeah. They were that productive. But yeah, I think it's the most cohesive work that like the material all sort of fits together better than anything that I've done. So I'm excited about that.
So it'll be on Amazon and it'll be on satellite radio. It'll debut on satellite radio, and then it'll wind up on Amazon, and then it'll come out as it'll be a CD after that. It'll be an actual physical CD. Do people still buy those as much, or is it more downloads?
A little bit, not a ton. Yeah. I mean, it's more download, but yeah, I still sell a few of those after shows, and some people want them. I like to have them.
That's cool, and then you can autograph it and stuff. And you have other merchandise too, right? You have T-shirts and stuff.
I got some shirts. I just never sell them, and sometimes, for the most part, I go through spurts. Like lately, for a while I wasn't bringing CDs, and now, God knows what comedy's going to be like for the next year. So I don't imagine selling anything to anybody for the next. It's just a needless interaction that could get somebody sick if we go back to doing shows anytime soon.
Oh, so do you think like the meet and greets and stuff are done for a long time, or maybe forever?
I think for a while.
Yeah.
I think not forever. Definitely not forever. But I think for a while they probably should be done. I just think it's like unnecessary to. It's just going to be another way for somebody to potentially get sick.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, have you heard anything? Because some of the comedy clubs here are already opening back up. I see even in Washington, where I thought it was more strict, they're opening some of the comedy clubs at like 25% capacity, and they're taking people's temperatures and
starting to hear some of that. I haven't done it yet. I think that's the first time I'm really, scheduled to be back since all this is in June, and I don't know if that club will be open or not. So. But I'm starting to book some things here and there. It's, I think, personally, if you open a comedy club at half capacity or whatever, and do the right things, I think that could be a good thing. I think it'll be a little different experience than a full comedy club. But I think if you keep people 6 feet apart and you don't have big groups, then maybe don't eat. I think that. I don't see how that's, and maybe, if people wear masks or like, I don't see where that's a whole lot more dangerous than a grocery store, to be honest with you.
No, the grocery store is
but-
stressful because especially when it's crowded. Like at least Costco, they only let so many people in, and everyone has to wear a mask, and they're much more strict. But some of the other ones, it's like really crowded. It's kind of then you're on these like really skinny aisles. It's kind of scary.
Yeah. I mean, I think we can make it work. And I think we're going to have to experiment our way through it, you know. And I just hope we do it with the right. Yeah, if you're well intended, I think it's something that we should try over the next few months.
Definitely.
To how do we make this work? And but let's not do it exactly like we did it in the past. You can't have a comedy club packed with 300 people laughing and opening their mouths and eating, and at least not now. I don't think.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Are you doing like the Zoom comedy show? A lot of the comedians are doing the online show. Are you doing any of those?
I'm not, man. I don't. No, I mean I've done some like
Yeah.
where it's just like a talk show kind of format and that kind of thing. But I have been asked to do several of and I'm a little bit more of a purist when it comes to the art form of stand up.
Right.
And I don't believe it really belongs there. But that doesn't mean that I begrudge people that are doing. For me personally, I don't think it belongs there. And, who knows? If the world changes, and I don't think that comedy's gone forever, but if a year and a half they're still not doing live shows, maybe I'll change my mind about it. But for right now, I'm like, I also feel like over the years, like I've learned is material is really important and very valuable. And, we talked about Sirius Radio.
Right.
And how lucrative that can be and how it's such a great experience that people can have. And I'm like, I spent a lot of my life trying to come up with these jokes. So why would I take this thing and I really, really, this precious thing and put it out on the internet in the worst medium possible for stand-up comedy? Why don't I move on to that and let's record it when there's crowds again? And I don't want people to be like, oh, that joke is garbage.
Yeah. Have you had a lot of material about the quarantine and the pandemic and coronavirus and all that?
Not a ton. I mean, I've got a few things here and there, definitely. I've got some, but I've always tried to sort of avoid talking about what everybody else is talking about when it comes to comedy. And that's mostly like, I'm not sure I'm like a skilled enough writer to like, if everybody does a joke about this one current event, I'm not sure my joke is going to be the best. But I do think like if I talk about something, I try to talk about something that most people aren't talking about, that, then it, maybe that can resonate with people.
No, yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's got to be hard because everyone's got to have like a lot of the same kinds of jokes about the pandemic, and I see a lot of the same memes and all that kind of stuff. So
sure, man. If it's a meme, it's it's probably not a good thing to be writing about. It's just I can kind of get a feel now for like I thought of that. A lot of times I'll use Twitter or Facebook for that kind of stuff.
Right.
Like, I'm going to put this out there. I'm going to guess that somebody else thought of this too, but I'm going to put it out there.
Nice.
But I do try to be like, okay, this is, I do try to avoid the stuff that I think everybody else is talking about.
That's smart. Yeah, that's good. That's why I like your stuff. So, I like to always end with a charity. Do you have a charity that you work with or that you're passionate about?
Man, I'm trying to think. For a long time, I've been given like every month to Children's International.
Okay.
And Wounded Warriors.
Oh, that's
like and lately, I think I also give every month to Covenant House.
What is Children International? What is that one?
I think it's like where you. This is where. Like, this is how I sign up for charities. Like, it's just like that one happened because I was in Denver doing a show, and these kids were out in the street with clipboards being like, "Hey, you want to go up?" And I'm like, I feel bad for this kid. And that was 10 years ago, and I've been giving them money every month for 10 years. But
wow,
it's like kids overseas that need money to eat.
Oh, okay, basically. Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah. So yeah, those are the three that I give to regularly, and I think every one of them I can't remember Wounded Warriors. Well, I think maybe I just saw a commercial or something. But,
yeah, that's a great one. Then what was the third one? Covenant House. What is that?
Covenant House. I think that's for runaways, kids like that. I think, and that was recent. I was in New York City, and it's like, I mean, it's not really. It's almost like superstition, but part of me is like how hard is it to get somebody to watch my comedy special? Pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
How hard is it to get somebody to, buy a CD or come to a comedy show? It's hard, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's really hard. So I try to have empathy for I'm walking by this girl on the street that's like, hey, do you want to sign up and can I tell you about Covenant House?
Right.
Now my first instinct, and most of the time I'm going to be like, just come on, leave me alone. I'm trying to get to the next place.
Right.
And then every now and then I have this sort of twinge of guilt or superstition or just pay it forwardness.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, I'm trying to get people to do stuff to break their habits and go listen to my podcast and that's almost impossible. But every now and then somebody does it. I need to break my habits and be like, God, I don't want to talk to you right now, but what do you have to say?
Exactly. No, that's exactly, it's exactly why I promote charities. So I'm like, all right, it's not all about me and my podcast. I want to try to do something better for the world. So those are three
really
great
cool
ones.
That you're doing that.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. It's really cool you're doing that. Yeah. So yeah, I'd like to say it's because I'm just this great person. I'm not.
No, exactly. Same thing. I'm like, I'm not I'm just I'm trying to be a great person, I guess, but I'm not.
That's right. Yeah. I'm just, and again, it really is that sort of thing. How do I break? I'm asking people to break the continuum of their day. Yes. Every now and then I need to break the continuum of my day and maybe not do exactly what I want to do all the time.
Exactly. No, that's awesome. So anything else you want to promote? I know you have the Fish Sandwich album is out right now. People can listen to that one, right?
Fish Sandwiches. I got a few albums out there. Fish Sandwich is the latest one.
Hit them with your flute. One Star Wonder.
1 Star Wonder. I don't think Hit 'em with Your Flute is available. But,
Is it true? I heard you say on a podcast that I don't know if I couldn't tell if you were joking or not. You said one of your friends found one of your CDs at a garage sale for a nickel or something.
15 cents. Yeah.
Oh, 15 cents. That's a good deal.
It was sticker price. Sticker price at 15 cents. Sticker at a garage sale. So it probably went for $4. So I've got CDs out. I'm really excited about that special in June, and then I've got a podcast that I do with Brendan Ayer. It's called One Down. It's
the one we talked about at the beginning, the crossword puzzle.
Yeah,
one, right?
yeah, that one. So man, I enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for coming on my show. So check out, everybody. Look out. So the new one coming out is called Where the Field Corn Grows.
Where the Field Corn Grows.
The Field Corn Grows. Okay, and that makes sense being in Missouri, right? There's a lot of field corn there, right?
Field corn in Missouri, Iowa,
all over the Midwest.
All over. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're on social media. You're on Twitter. You're on your Facebook says you're a bartender at Arby's. So I don't know if that's your side job.
Yeah, man. That's where most of my money comes from.
Yeah. And you're on Instagram. That's how I found you. So check out all your social media.
Oh, cool.
And your website. You have a website too, right? I think.
Greg Warren Comedy. Yeah.
Greg Warren Comedy. Perfect. Okay. Yeah. Thanks so much for being on here, Greg. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I enjoy talking with you, man.
Yeah, if you ever get to Phoenix, I'll have to come see your act live.
Absolutely, and I will. I do. Okay. I need to get back there, man. I really like it there.
Yeah, there's a lot of clubs here too. So
great clubs. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thanks so much.
Okay, man. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, see you.
Such a funny and nice guy. Check out his comedy clips and share them. Look for his upcoming album, Where the Field Corn Grows. Find him on social media. Follow him. He's a funny guy. You can follow me on social media if you want. I'd love to hear from you and what your thoughts on the show are. You can even write me a review if you want. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Thanks for listening, and I hope you have an amazing day or night.